So can we please start here?
Let me try to be very brief in your question about voting machine, technological voting. I think provided we can take care of the followings, I would be very much in favor of efficiency in voting. These are the key hiccups that I'm worried about. Number one, would there be rigging of the results by powerful authoritarian regime that behind, able to go and work with some computer visit and then rig the results in a very savvy way that no one can know about? That would be one. Number two, privacy of voting, could it be easily violated? When you vote by machine, people could keep your information, no matter what you say, it's secure, but it's still, Snowden show you it's not secure. So therefore, how could we get rid of the issue of privacy of our own vote? Third, are there due technological process being put on in the governance? And what are those due process that we need before we even think about technological capability? Four, the state of technological progress in humankind are different at different spots in the world. There are some least developed countries when things of that kind would be very difficult. For example, the cost of installment, the cost of another issue, not only the machine cost, but the cost of the people going to vote by machine. They too, some of them may not have the personal handphones, thing of that issue. How would we cover those costs? Then the issue of complacency of voters who are there. It's being seen clearly. No matter how easy it is to vote, if they're complacent, it will not solve that problem. And the issue of tech-unable people. There are people who are not tech-savvy in this world today. And the social media cooperation with the big politicians, they could easily steer the direction of voting. Those are some of the issues that I'm worried about. Therefore, let me conclude by saying, as I said in my speech, that if you have integrity, then it will supersede all the technological machinery that we have. It's the issue of integrity of all sides, politicians, voters, and those who are being voted.
Thank you, Keng Sak. So we're seeing here that, again, the same issues keep coming up again and again. Integrity, governance models, social media, and access.
So thank you. It really is a good question, and it is also very challenging for all the governments kind of to find a good solution to that how to implement legislation in order to achieve the goals and not at the same time distorting the functioning of the market in a way that inefficiencies are created. But that's life, I would say. And OECD also is an organization which tries to help governments to find the right regulation. We make a lot of peer reviews, give guidance also when it comes to, for example, these recommendations on multinational enterprises. So we have toolkits how to implement them, not only for governments, but also to companies, so that they can see how the things are done in other companies and in order then to fulfill the criteria. So implementation is important, but also oversight, monitoring is important, and that is done, of course, by the governments, but also by citizens, by NGOs, by media. So, I mean, everyone has to be on board, so all the stakeholders are needed in order to make the system to function. Yep, micro.
Your comments remind me not only of the pivotal role of the OECD, but also of Mr. Prime Minister of Qatar's comments this morning, at least the English translation of which were the need to shoulder the responsibility for legal and ethical. So, Ashwani.
Susan, you asked me a difficult question. What would I advise the head of states to introduce the element of ethics and what they do? Let me start by answering you, and this statement is rooted in my perception of ethics in democratic politics. The only justification for the pursuit of power, which rests on the faith of the people, is to strive to establish societies that are seen to be fair, just, promotive of equality and inclusion. The only ethical standard on the basis of which you can measure the exercise of power as a rightful exercise or a wrongful exercise thereof is the extent to which the exercise of power has helped to create a fair and a just society. Again, a question of ethics. And the question of the morality of power is ultimately a question of the ethics of power. And I dare say that all democratically elected governments, sooner or later, face this test, whether in the perception of the people on whose faith and trust governments come into being, governments have been able to discharge and vindicate their burden. There is no shortcut to it. The morality of power depends upon the ends to which it is applied, and this is an ethical question. This will be my advice to all heads of government and all people who exercise power. Please promote a just and fair society. Now, without political stability, which again is a function of the policies that governments pursue, you cannot establish a fair and just society. If the policies pursued by people in government and power are not inclusive, they lead to alienation, they lead to division, they lead to xenophobic urges, quite clearly those leaders would lose the trust of the people.
Thank you, Ashwani. Bruno, and then we'll open up the conversation with all of you.
Sorry.
Please, Bruno. Yes. So on the question of if you could name the next priorities of cooperation between business and government.
Okay, my priorities, I think I talked about them clearly. I think commitment and measurement is by countries and by companies is very clear. Redefining values for companies is very important. There are more practical ways also to be more efficient on those transformations is to align public bodies together. I have not mentioned that, but to tell you the truth, if the UN FCCC, the Organization of the UN for Climate, could be working along with WTO on those carbon pricing issues quickly, I think it would improve and accelerate very well. And so there is a need for different silos to work together, and there is a need for governments to start to test their new measurements on climate, for example, about public procurement. I think public procurement is a very practical way to start transforming our cities, to transforming, the way we live, and the companies will produce also.